Hey, hey, hey. Time for another Out of This World story from rSpace. Thou shalt not cover our neighbor's six-pack. Today on rSpace, a not-so-charitable woman who found out that giving back to the community doesn't just mean bake sale and fundraisers. Wife threw herself at our neighbor's college-age son. I destroyed the community she built. I always thought that I understood people who couldn't immediately let go of someone that they really loved, even after the person did them dirty. I mean, I've been in love. I was so in love with my wife that I used to think that even if she did the worst possible thing to me and I left her, I would still care about her to some degree, though obviously less than before. Sadly, I've been made to test that out, and I was so wrong about it. You actually can switch directly from love to hate, and that's what has just happened with me. I hate my wife so much, and I can't wait for things to finally be over with her. Right now, I'm 42, and she just turned 40. So you'd assume she knows better when it comes to certain things. She's old enough to. We've been married for 11 years now, and we both knew we didn't want children. Right now, I'm glad that was the choice we made because if I had to start dealing with custody, I'd be a lot more pissed off than I am right now. Here's the story. We've lived in our current house for 6 years now, and since we moved in, we've had the same neighbor to the right of our house for the entire 6 years. It was a couple a little older than us, probably in their early 50s or so. They did eventually get divorced, and the wife kept the house, but I'm still on relatively good terms with both of them. The divorce wasn't messy, which I think helped out with that. Now, they have 2 children, a son and a daughter. While neither of them was at home that often, they attended boarding school. They came around a little often. The daughter was at home a lot more, though. I feel like I've only seen the son once or twice, especially because after the divorce, I learned from his mother that he started to stay at his dad's place during his school vacations. The reason that this is relevant is that during his last holiday, he came to his mom's place, which was the first time I had seen him in a long time. Here's the thing. He was a regular-looking teenager the last time I saw him, but this time around, he was probably 19 or 20, and it was obvious that he had grown into a pretty good-looking guy. That was just a passive realization and not something with any special kind of consideration to it. I didn't know that it was going to end up being a massive problem for me. I think my wife had seen the kid, let's just call him Shane, a lot less than I had back then. So when she saw him this time around, for the first time from our upper floor window, her reaction was concerning to me. She came to me trying to act calm, but I could tell that she was excited. She asked me who the guy in our neighbor's yard was, and I mentioned that it was their son, Shane. She said that he didn't look anything like she remembered, that he was grown now. I agreed with her because, yeah, he was all grown up. So that was factual. But then she went on to talk about how handsome he was. I agree with that in the shortest way possible because I'll admit that I hate seeing my wife give too much attention to other men. That includes when she raves about celebrity crushes. It's not like I don't find Emilia Clarke attractive, but I'm smart enough not to yap about that beside her because I know it's not the kind of thing that a woman would want to hear. I don't know why it never works the same way when it originates from a woman, though. The conversation ended there, but when I went upstairs a few minutes later, I looked outside and saw that Shane was lounging in their backyard with his shirt off. The only reason that annoyed me was that I knew he was the subject of my wife's attention. But I didn't hold it against him because there wasn't any reason he wasn't allowed to do that. She was just acting desperate. That's where the situation should have ended, and I thought it was over. It was about 3 days later that I realized how much of a problem there was going to be. It was the weekend, and the weather had been really good, so I used the opportunity to get some yard work done. Everything I did was in the front yard, and I didn't even peek into the backyard. It was only when I got upstairs and looked into the backyard that I saw my wife lying on a blanket in a bikini, sunbathing. Considering the weather was great, it wasn't crazy for her to be sunbathing. The only problem was that I have never seen my wife sunbathe anywhere that's not a beach. And even then, it's not something she does regularly. So for her to suddenly choose to sunbathe when the last time I must have seen her do that was like 2 years ago, my mind instantly went to the fact that she was trying to impress a certain someone, especially because in our neighborhood, the yards are separated by fences you can see through. They're wooden, about 5 feet high, and they have enough spacing between the boards for you to see what's happening in the next yard, but not enough to slide more than a hand through. I knew she was doing it for Shane because I saw him next door in the neighbor's above-ground pool, with about 3 of his friends. At that point, I had no idea how far she had planned. I had no idea if she had intentions to try and sleep with him or whether she just wanted harmless attention from a much younger guy. Regardless, though, it was shameful for me to look at. Before you ask me why I didn't confront her and tell her to get her butt back in the house, it was mainly because I didn't want to end up as the insecure husband who can't stand to see his wife showing skin, especially because I've never had an issue with her sunbathing before. For me to stop outside and tell her to get inside because I think she's trying to attract the neighbor's son, without any proof of any kind, would have been problematic. And quite frankly, it would have been an entirely unnecessary scene for me to cause. So I let it go. But I took note of it. However, it didn't take long for me to get what I needed to escalate things. I watched a little bit of TV, and then when I looked out the window again, I saw my wife right beside the fence. I could only see the top of Shane's head because of the angle, but it was clear he was on the other side of the fence. I opened the window slightly and tried my best to see if I could hear what they were talking about, but I couldn't. But I was so pissed off looking at that because, to me, it was the proof I needed that she was out there for a specific reason. I made sure to take a picture of it too, so she wouldn't have any space to deny it. I was watching the entire time, and about 3 minutes later, I watched her walk away from the fence with a big smile on her face. I headed downstairs immediately. She was coming back in by the time I got downstairs, and I was so annoyed by her behavior that I jumped straight into it. I asked her when she started sunbathing again. As expected, she said it was because the weather was so great. I mentioned that it had been ages since I had last seen her sunbathe, and even at that, she only reserved it for the beach. "There's a first time for everything, I guess," was her response to that. I'd hoped to be more subtle with my approach, but she clearly wasn't getting the message. I mentioned that I saw her talking to Shane, and I'm not sure if it was just in my head, but I felt like I saw her react somewhat to that. She said that she was just being conversational with him, since it had been such a long time since she had seen him. He was 19 and was getting set for college, so he came around to see his mom after so long. I didn't care about all of that, so I asked her if that was the only thing that they talked about, and she said it was because, what else would we talk about? That's where things ended that day, but honestly, I had a gut feeling that the situation wasn't as she was saying. I've never had a reason not to trust my wife, but I couldn't just trust her this time around. Things just didn't seem that they were normal, or that the things she was doing were being done innocently. It was about 2 weeks later that I finally learned the truth of the situation. Shane had already left his mom's house and gone wherever. I was glad he was leaving because I felt like his threat was out of the picture. However, I found out that his leaving came later than I wanted it to. How did I find out? In the stupidest way possible. Her phone was on a table, and a notification came in from Shane. The worst part is that we were out at dinner with friends, and because she was in a conversation, she didn't even notice the notification. I saw it, and she didn't. The message itself didn't seem too crazy, but the fact that she was chatting with him was all I needed to know that something was very wrong. I tried my best to keep my mood up for the rest of the dinner, but I really couldn't. A few people noticed, but I had to deflect their concern. She didn't notice until the car ride home. I could have confronted her pretty easily at that point because there was so much negative energy in me that I wanted to let loose. However, the one thing that I didn't want was for her to have even a little bit of deniability. The message I saw wasn't anything crazy, so it was very possible that she hadn't done anything or that she didn't even have the intention to. I wanted to make sure that I caught her with documented evidence so that she wouldn't be able to deny anything, and so that if I choose to divorce her, I would have a lot more working in my favor. So that night, when she went to bed, I grabbed her phone. I had to wait long enough to make sure that she was asleep, since she wasn't smart about things. It wasn't hard for me to simply open Shane in her chat app. I went to the very beginning of the conversation, which was on the same day that she had been sunbathing. She had talked to him about something else that day, and it was getting his number. Sure, it's possible that he had been the one to ask for her number, but even if that was the case, he's like 20 years younger than her, and her actually agreeing to hand over her number is still a red flag. I knew it was more likely she asked him because he knew me and he knew she was married. The conversation started relatively tame, with her asking about what he planned to study and become. It was obvious when she started to tilt the conversation, though. She started asking about his social life and whether he went to clubs and parties. Then she asked about how many times a week he went to the gym, and then whether he had a girlfriend or not. She transitioned from that into the typical "girls must never leave you alone" strategy. And then, a few days after they had started talking, she invited him over to our house for coffee. I hadn't heard anything about that. He was very clearly smart enough to know what she was pointing at. I was really glad to see his next question was straight to the point. "What about your husband?" From the timestamps, it took her about 15 minutes to send a reply to that. I'm sure that she hadn't expected him to ask that. Her response was that there was nothing to worry about in that regard. She lied to him and said that we were in an open relationship and had been for the last 7 months. I lost my crap there. I had to leave the bedroom because I was so angry. That lie alone was all I needed to know that I was going to divorce her, even though at that point I hadn't even confirmed whether they sealed a deal or not. It only took me reading to the next day, when she sent him a message asking, "How good was that?" for me to know that they had slept together. My wife cheated on me with a 19-year-old who we knew as a kid. That disgusted me, especially because she had so little remorse that she still went to him to get his review. She was still texting him. She felt no kind of way about cheating on me, and that's what made it hurt even worse. At that point, I knew it was over, and I know that I'm not going to feel any better unless I hurt her worse. I woke her up right then and there. There was no point letting her sleep peacefully while I was going through it. She seemed scared, especially because she was asking why I woke her up, and I wasn't saying anything to that. When I figured she was awake enough to actually hear my questions, I asked her what was going on between her and Shane. I told myself that if she actually told me the truth on the first try, I might have actually given consideration to an alternative to divorce. But of course, that didn't happen. She lied and acted like she couldn't remember who Shane was. Then, when she did remember, she claimed that they only texted about college and nothing more than that. According to her, he asked for her number because he wanted to know a little more about what to expect from college. I let her know straight away that there was no point in her lying because I had read her chats from start to finish. That time, I didn't need to squint for her reaction. She actually jumped up when she heard that. I let her know that I knew about her sleeping with him. I told her I knew about her lying, that we were in an open relationship. She had just lied to me just then. At that point, as much as I try not to call people names, I couldn't hold it back. I just started throwing in insults as the mood called for, because the whole situation was driving me nuts. She wasn't saying anything, but midway through my tirade, she started crying and saying that she was sorry. I told her that it was too late for sorry, and that the divorce was going to happen whether she liked it or not. That was the first I was mentioning a divorce. And at that point, the crying went up a lot. I had said what I wanted to say though, so I immediately left her to continue her crying by herself, especially because it was so annoying to listen to. She came downstairs once and tried to beg me, but I pushed her away. A bit harder than I tried, but I didn't mind the mistake. I left the house for the rest of the night, but in the morning, I came back and told her to start packing her things. She did that and was out of the house before the evening that day. This is where I currently am, and I've spoken to a divorce lawyer already. I'm going to make sure that things end as quickly as possible. However, I need to find something else I can do to hurt her. Because if she's going to destroy our life and make me feel this level of pain, I absolutely must do something in return, whether it is petty or not. Update. Guess who's finally a single man again? I'm sorry that this is coming months after my last post, but I had no impact or how quickly the divorce process goes. And to be honest, I think it went pretty fast by average standards. When I gave my ex-wife the divorce papers, she didn't react or fight. She cried, of course, but I was expecting that. But I think she knew she messed up so bad that there was no point in trying to beg. I wish she had, because it would have given me a chance to turn her down. Anyway, once we went into the actual divorce process, things went somewhat smoothly. Since we got married, she's been involved with volunteer work at NGOs, and in most cases, her financial contribution to our household is about 10% of the total. I tried to make the use of evidence of her cheating to swat away a request for alimony, but the gap in our earnings was too large for that to work in my favor. Regarding the house, I got my way, which was for us to sell it and split the earnings. In the end, I'm being alimony for a little bit of time, but it's something I can handle. I'm just happy to be away from her. As soon as the divorce was finalized, I messaged Shane and let him know that his and my ex-wife's actions led to our divorce. I told him that we had never been in an open relationship and she just wanted to sleep with him that bad. He was genuinely shocked and he seemed to be distressed about it. I told him that I didn't blame him for it and that he didn't need to beat himself up, but I had to let him know what had played out. He said he never asked me to confirm about the open relationship because my ex had told him that we never wanted to have an idea of who the other was sleeping with. He apologized a million times and I told him over and over that it was fine. The only thing that was left for me to do was to hit my ex-wife hard. I wanted her to hurt the same way I had when I found out that my marriage was going to fail because of a cheating partner. She's big into volunteer work, so she has an online community that she built from scratch that promotes charity activities. It started off as something in our town, but she did a good job building it to cover almost half the state. I knew that was what I would target. Here's the thing. I was hurt, but I'm not a monster. I really consider actually tearing the community apart. But instead, I chose to tear the grasp that she had on that group. So, I grabbed all the evidence that I had, including Shane's apologies, and then I sent a message to her community. I wasn't scared to let them know it was me. I told them I was doing it because it was important for them to understand the person that they knew at the helm of things. A person who tried to act like they were morally good with a crappy individual. She was a cheat, and she was into young men who were half her age and had only newly become adults. I worded it in the least flattering way possible. The message I posted was deleted by a moderator after about 2 hours, but thankfully it had started enough discourse. There's nothing wrong with seeing people dissect your ex-wife's decision to cheat on you and how bad a person that makes her. She reached out to me, and of course, she was furious. But every time she sent a message or called, I just ignored it. But through her messages, I could tell how mad she was. On the page, she eventually made a statement. She had made a mistake, but that didn't call for her being treated like a horrible person. She said the real horrible person was me for exposing her like that. She said she was going to be stepping down from her position, announcing her replacement as head of the community. Some folks might have weathered the storm of bad press, but not her. She's not emotionally strong enough for that. Again, if it wasn't a page dedicated to something that's good, I would have fought to tear down the whole thing. But her page does help people, and I didn't want to ruin that. After I got my pleasure from watching her public perception decline, I blocked her everywhere. I can sort out her payments without her reaching out to me. She doesn't know where I live now, which is great for me. Overall, I wish I could have done more to get back at her, but I'll take what I got. I just want everyone to know that you're never forced to be in a relationship. So if you want to leave, even in marriage, then leave. It's never worth staying if you don't want to. She torched your marriage for a fling with a kid, lied straight to your face, and expected to walk away without consequences. She saw the neighbor's kid come back from puberty with a six-pack and decided to toss your entire marriage in the trash. Yuck. And for her to just manufacture this whole open relationship narrative without your knowledge? That wasn't about honesty. That was about making her choices look less awful. A convenient little rewrite to paint it like everything was above board, like you were in on it the whole time. It wasn't openness, it was damage control. Just her way of slapping a pretty label on betrayal and hoping no one looked too closely at the fine print. What's the worst excuse you've ever heard from someone who cheated? And how did you shut them down? Share your stories with us in the comments below. Thank you for joining us today in rSpace. Be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. See you soon.